I killed 3 people's careers for $5,000, and I'd probably do it again.
You're listening to Confessions After Dark, the podcast where secrets come to light. I'm Derek.
And I'm Jessica. Every week we receive written confessions from people who need to tell their story, but can't tell anyone in their real lives.
What you're about to hear tonight are dramatic reenactments based on real confessions sent to us by our listeners. We've changed names and some details to protect identities.
Tonight we have 3 confessions that show how one wrong choice can destroy multiple lives. Our first comes from a woman we're calling Rachel, who wrote to us about something that happened when she was 19.
Fair warning, tonight's episode deals with blackmail, violence, and death. If that's too heavy for you right now, we understand.
Rachel's story starts with her working at a photography studio and finding something she was never supposed to see. Here's our reenactment of her confession.
Rachel was 19 when she discovered that some secrets are worth more than others.
My name is Rachel, and I need to tell someone what I did. I've never said this out loud, not to therapists, not to friends, not even to myself in the mirror. I was working part-time at Peterson Photography while going to college. Mr. Peterson treated me like family. He gave me keys, trusted me with deposits, everything. I thought I was so responsible, so trustworthy.
It was a Tuesday afternoon when Rachel was processing wedding photos from the weekend. The bride had been radiant, the groom handsome, the ceremony perfect.
I was going through the final batch when I found something that didn't belong. Hidden in the middle of the bride's album was a photo of her with the best man, not a wedding photo, something intimate that would destroy the marriage that had happened just 3 days earlier. I stared at that photo for hours, knowing I held someone's entire future in my hands. I should have destroyed it, should have pretended I never saw it, but instead I made a copy.
2 weeks later, reality hit Rachel hard.
My tuition bill arrived, $8,000 I didn't have. My parents had already maxed out their credit cards helping me. I was going to have to drop out, lose everything I'd worked for. So I wrote an anonymous note demanding $5,000, or the groom would learn some very interesting things about his new wife. I thought I was so clever, so untouchable.
The payment came within 48 hours, but Rachel's problems were just beginning.
3 days later, someone came to the studio asking questions. Not the bride, someone else. A woman in an expensive suit who said she was handling the situation for her client. My boss got paranoid and started investigating everyone with access. 3 innocent people got fired that week. Jennifer from processing, Mike from the front desk, and Mrs. Chen who'd worked there for 12 years. I watched them clean out their desks. Jennifer was crying because she had 2 kids and no savings. Mrs. Chen just looked broken, and I said nothing.
But the woman in the expensive suit wasn't done with Rachel.
2 weeks later, she called me. She knew it was me. She'd figured it out somehow, and she had a proposition. She represented people who sometimes needed information acquired discreetly, and I'd already proven I had the skills for it. She offered me $20,000 for one job. A law firm downtown needed files from a custody case. The father was her client, and the mother's lawyer had evidence that could destroy him.
Rachel got a job at the law firm as a temp. It took her 3 days to find what she was looking for.
When I saw what was in those files, I almost backed out. Medical records, photos of bruises, a child psychologist's notes that made my stomach turn. This wasn't about money or revenge. A mother was trying to protect her 7-year-old daughter from something horrible. But I was already in too deep. The woman had made it clear what would happen if I backed out. She knew about the wedding photo, knew I'd already destroyed 3 lives. She could destroy mine just as easily. So I took the files. I handed them over and collected my $20,000. Blood money for helping a monster get access to his daughter.
6 months later, Rachel saw a news report that changed everything.
A 7-year-old girl found dead in her father's apartment. Suspicious circumstances, they said. The same little girl whose mother had been fighting so hard to protect her. I'd enabled her murder, not directly, but I might as well have pulled the trigger myself. All for college money that I didn't even need anymore. I'd already gotten scholarships to cover most of my tuition. I dropped out anyway, moved across the country, changed my name. I work at a nonprofit now, helping abuse victims. I tell myself I'm making amends, but every child I help just reminds me of the one I failed.
The woman who recruited Rachel has never let her forget what she's done.
She still contacts me sometimes. Christmas cards with no return address, photos of other children who might need my help, reminding me that she knows where I am, what I've done. Every year on the anniversary of that little girl's death, I donate whatever I can scrape together to child protection agencies. Usually it's just a few $100s, but it's all I can afford on my salary. If you're listening to this and facing a choice between easy money and doing what's right, think about her. Think about a 7-year-old girl who trusted the system to protect her, and think about living with the weight of knowing you could have saved someone and chose not to.
That was our reenactment of Rachel's confession. Jessica, I have to ask, do you think she's really trying to make amends, or is she just trying to make herself feel better?
That's the question that haunts me, Derek. She donates money every year, whatever she can afford. It feels almost ritualistic, like she's trying to balance some cosmic scale that can never actually be balanced.
And what really gets me is that she admits she'd probably do it again. That tells me she hasn't really changed fundamentally, she's just living with the consequences of her choices.
The part about the Christmas cards, though, that's what keeps me up at night. This woman who recruited her is still out there, still operating, still finding desperate people to exploit.
It's like Rachel opened a door to this criminal underworld that she can never fully close. Even years later, they still see her as an asset.
What's tragic is how it all started. She needed tuition money. In a different world, maybe she gets a student loan, works extra shifts, finds another way. But she saw that photo and saw an opportunity.
And 3 innocent people lost their jobs because of her boss's paranoia. Jennifer with 2 kids, Mrs. Chen, who'd worked there for 12 years. They paid the price for Rachel's choice before that little girl ever did.
Which brings us to our second confession tonight. This one comes from someone we're calling Marcus, and it's about trying to escape a life of crime when the only way out leads through violence.
Marcus sent us his confession along with newspaper clippings about the incident. What you're about to hear is our reenactment based on his detailed account of what happened.
Fair warning, this story involves gang violence and some pretty intense situations. Here's Marcus's confession.
Marcus thought he'd found a way out. He was wrong.
My name is Marcus, and I've been carrying this secret for years. Not even my wife knows what I did, what I was part of. I was 23 when my daughter was born. Holding her for the first time, I realized she deserved better than having a father who might not come home. I wanted out of the life I'd been living.
Marcus had been running drugs for his older brother's crew since he was 16. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid well and kept his family fed.
When I told my brother Danny I wanted out, he laughed at first. Then he got serious real quick, said I knew too much to just walk away, said there were consequences for people who tried to leave. But he offered me a deal. One last job, something different, and then I'd be free. Clean slate, no looking over my shoulder.
The job wasn't what Marcus expected.
They needed someone to get close to a social worker named Ms. Rodriguez. She'd been asking too many questions about kids in our neighborhood, building some kind of case. My job was to get hired as a janitor at the community center where she worked, copy her files, find out who she'd been talking to, basically destroy her investigation from the inside.
Marcus got the job within a week. What he found there changed everything.
Ms. Rodriguez wasn't just some bureaucrat trying to make trouble. She was a lifeline for these kids. Some of them, she was the only adult in their lives who gave a damn. I spent 3 weeks watching her work, staying late to help kids with homework, driving them home when it wasn't safe to walk, fighting with the system to get them into better situations.
But Marcus had files to steal and a family to protect.
I took photos of everything: names, addresses, witness statements, kids who were trying to get out, families who were cooperating with law enforcement, everything she'd built over months of careful work. There was this one file that broke me. A 13-year-old kid who'd been trying to escape just like me. Miss Rodriguez had been working with him for months, had almost gotten him into a safe house program.
The night Marcus was supposed to hand over the files, he made a choice that would haunt him forever.
I met my brother at the warehouse like we planned. He was there with 2 other guys I didn't recognize. When I handed over the memory card with all the photos, he smiled and said I'd done good. Then he asked me to stick around, said there was one more thing they needed to handle. That's when Ms. Rodriguez walked in. They grabbed her from the parking lot of the community center. She was zip-tied, terrified, but still trying to negotiate for the kids' safety.
Marcus realized his brother had never intended to let him walk away clean.
Danny explained it real simple. Ms. Rodriguez was going to disappear, and I was going to help make it happen. Said it would give me some skin in the game, make sure I never talked. I looked at this woman who dedicated her life to protecting children, and I thought about my own daughter sleeping at home, about the kind of world I was helping to create for her. So I made my choice.
What happened next took less than 30 seconds, but felt like a lifetime.
I grabbed the gun from Danny's waistband and shot the two guys he'd brought. Danny went for his piece, and I put two in his chest before he could clear leather. Ms. Rodriguez was screaming, asking me what was happening. I cut her loose and told her to run, told her to take her files and disappear for a while.
Marcus had killed his own brother and two other men to protect a woman he barely knew.
I called 911 and waited for the cops. Told them it was self-defense, that they'd been planning to kill both me and Ms. Rodriguez. The evidence backed up my story. Danny had a gun in his hand when they found him. The other two guys had records as long as your arm. Nobody looked too hard at the details.
But Marcus's problems were far from over.
The rest of Danny's crew wanted revenge, but they also wanted those files. They figured I must have kept copies, must know where Ms. Rodriguez went. I moved my family across the country, changed our names, started over, but they found us twice, had to move again, and again. Ms. Rodriguez sent me a letter a few years later. She'd relocated too, but she was still doing the work. Said that 13-year-old kid I'd been worried about was in college now, studying social work.
Marcus never told his wife the real reason they had to keep moving.
She thinks I'm paranoid about home security, doesn't understand why we can't visit my family, why I pay cash for everything, why I always check the locks twice before bed. But my daughter is older now, and she's never had to worry about where her next meal is coming from or whether her father is coming home. That's worth something. I killed my own brother to protect a stranger's life. Most people would say that makes me a monster. But when I think about all the kids Ms. Rodriguez has helped since then, all the families she saved, I think maybe I did the right thing. The only person who knows the whole truth is Ms. Rodriguez herself. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder if she ever thinks about the man who saved her life by destroying his own.
That was Marcus's confession, and honestly, Jessica, I don't know how to feel about that one. I mean, he literally killed his own brother.
I know, Derek. When I first read his submission, I had to put it down and walk away for a few minutes. But then I kept thinking, what would I do in that situation? Your family is threatening to kill you if you don't help them destroy someone who's protecting children.
Right? And Marcus wasn't some saint trying to get out of gang life. He'd been running drugs since he was 16. He knew exactly what kind of people he was dealing with.
But that's what makes it so compelling to me. This wasn't a good person making one bad choice. This was someone who'd made bad choices, his whole life finally deciding to do the right thing, even when it meant killing the people closest to him.
The part that gets me is how he describes shooting his brother. There's no emotion in it, no regret. Just this cold calculation that Danny was going to kill both him and Ms. Rodriguez.
Well, and think about what his brother was asking him to do. They weren't just going to kill a social worker, they were going to eliminate someone who was the only lifeline for dozens of kids. How many children would have suffered if Marcus hadn't acted?
But now he's living this completely fake life with his wife and daughter. His wife thinks he's paranoid about security, doesn't understand why they keep moving. His daughter will never know what kind of man her father really is.
Or what kind of man he used to be versus what he became. I mean, he spent years protecting his family and staying clean. At what point does someone stop being defined by their worst moment?
I guess that's the question all three of our confessors are dealing with tonight. Can you ever really escape what you've done, even when you're trying to make amends?
Speaking of which, we have one more confession that really drives that point home. This final story comes from someone we're calling David, and it's about discovering that your best friend isn't who you thought they were.
David's confession is particularly tough because he had to choose between loyalty to a friend and protecting innocent people. And unlike Rachel and Marcus, David's story is still playing out. The consequences of his choices are ongoing.
Fair warning on this one, David's confession deals with domestic violence and some pretty intense situations, but it also shows how sometimes doing the right thing means breaking the rules.
Here's our reenactment of David's confession.
David thought his best friend was the perfect husband. He was dead wrong.
My name is David, and I'm going to tell you about the night I became both a hero and a monster. It depends on who you ask. My best friend Tony and I had been tight since college. He married this amazing woman Lisa, and they seemed perfect together. House in the suburbs, good jobs, talking about kids.
David was Tony's best man, godfather to their first child, practically family.
I had a key to their house for emergencies. One night I stopped by to grab some tools Tony was lending me. I figured they were asleep, so I let myself in quietly. That's when I heard Lisa crying upstairs. Not normal crying, the kind of sobbing that comes from pure terror.
What David saw when he reached the top of the stairs changed everything.
Tony had Lisa pinned against the bedroom wall, his hands around her throat. She was barely conscious, and he was whispering things to her that I can't repeat. I stood there for maybe 3 seconds, frozen. This was my best friend, the guy who coached Little League, who donated to charity, who everyone loved. Then Lisa's eyes found mine, and I saw something in them that I'll never forget. She thought she was going to die that night.
David had to make a split-second decision.
I grabbed the baseball bat Tony kept by the bedroom door and hit him in the back of the head. He dropped like a stone. For a moment, I thought I'd killed him. Lisa collapsed, gasping for air. She had bruises on her neck, blood on her lip. When she could finally speak, she begged me not to call the police.
Lisa revealed that the abuse had been going on for 2 years.
She said Tony threatened to kill her family if she ever told anyone. Said he had friends on the police force who would make sure nothing happened to him. She was terrified that if I called it in, he'd get out on bail and finish what he started. And honestly, looking at his connections in town, she was probably right.
David made a choice that would haunt him for years.
I told Lisa to pack whatever she could carry and get out of town. Stay with family, disappear for a while. Then I called 911 and told them I'd found Tony unconscious after an apparent break-in. When the paramedics arrived, I was playing the concerned friend. Tony had a concussion and no memory of the past few hours. Perfect.
But David's plan had a fatal flaw.
Tony recovered within a week, but Lisa was gone. He filed a missing person report, played the devastated husband perfectly. The whole town was looking for her. I wanted to tell the truth, but Lisa had made me promise to stay quiet. She called me once from a payphone to say she was safe, but that was it.
3 months later, Tony remarried. A young woman from the next town over who looked eerily similar to Lisa.
I watched this new wife, Sarah, start showing the same signs. Nervous around Tony, making excuses for bruises, isolating herself from friends and family. I tried to warn her, but she didn't believe me. Said Tony was the sweetest man she'd ever met, that I was obviously jealous of their happiness.
David realized he'd only delayed the inevitable.
6 months after their wedding, Sarah ended up in the hospital with a fall down the stairs. I knew it was bullshit, but I couldn't prove anything. That night, I broke into Tony's house again. This time, I planted evidence, photos of Lisa's injuries that I'd taken the night I saved her, hidden in places the police would find them. Then I called in an anonymous tip about suspicious activity at Tony's address.
The police raid uncovered more than David had bargained for.
They found the photos I'd planted, but they also found other things. Videos Tony had been making, files on multiple women, plans that made it clear this wasn't going to stop with Sarah. Tony got years in prison for assault, stalking, and a dozen other charges. Sarah finally admitted what he'd been doing to her. Lisa came forward during the trial to testify.
David thought his nightmare was over. He was wrong.
Tony's family knew I was involved somehow. They hired a private investigator who figured out that I'd planted the evidence. Legally, they couldn't prove it, but they knew. They made my life hell. Got me fired from my job, spread rumors about me being unstable. My own wife left me because she couldn't handle the constant harassment. But the worst part is the doubt. Did I do the right thing? I saved 2 women from a monster, but I also lied to police, planted evidence, and destroyed my own life in the process. Tony's in prison now, and both Lisa and Sarah have rebuilt their lives. They both thank me when they see me, call me a hero. But I'm not a hero. Heroes don't have to plant evidence to get justice. Heroes don't destroy their own families to save someone else's. I live alone now, work security at a shopping mall, but sometimes I see women with that same look in their eyes that Lisa had, and I know I'd do it all again.
That was David's confession, and Jessica, I have to say, of all 3 stories tonight, his might be the most morally complex.
Absolutely, Derek. I mean, Rachel clearly made the wrong choice for selfish reasons. Marcus made a brutal choice, but ultimately saved lives. But David did the right thing and the wrong thing simultaneously.
Right? Because when you break it down, he saved Lisa's life that night. There's no question about that. Tony was literally strangling her when David walked in.
But then he lied to the police about what happened, and later, when he realized Tony was going to keep abusing women, he planted evidence to get him arrested.
Which worked. Tony got years in prison, and both Lisa and Sarah are safe now, but David had to destroy his own life to make it happen.
What really gets me is the system failure here. David knew that if he'd called the police that first night, Tony probably would have gotten out on bail and killed Lisa, so he felt like he had no choice but to help her disappear.
And then when Tony remarried and started abusing his new wife, David realized he just delayed the inevitable. That's when he decided to plant the evidence.
The question is, was that justice or was that vigilantism? Because legally, everything David did was wrong. He assaulted Tony, lied to police, planted evidence.
But morally? I mean, he saved 2 women from a serial abuser who probably would have escalated to murder eventually. The photos and videos the police found suggest Tony was planning much worse things.
It reminds me of what Marcus said about there being no clean way out of some situations. Sometimes all your options are bad, and you just have to choose which kind of wrong you can live with.
What's tragic is that David lost everything: his job, his marriage, his reputation, for doing what most people would consider heroic.
But he says he'd do it again. Even knowing the cost, even knowing how it would destroy his life, he'd still save those women.
All 3 of tonight's confessions show us people who had to make impossible choices. Rachel chose money over morality and has to live with enabling a child's murder. Marcus chose violence over family loyalty, but saved countless children. David chose justice over law and order, but saved 2 women's lives.
And they're all still living with the consequences years later. Rachel donating what she can every year, Marcus moving his family constantly, David working mall security alone.
None of them got clean endings. None of them got to ride off into the sunset feeling good about their choices.
Which I think is what makes these confessions so powerful. Real moral dilemmas don't have neat solutions. They have consequences that echo for years.
Before we wrap up, I want to address something. If you're in a domestic violence situation like Lisa or Sarah, please know that there are people who can help you safely.
The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-879-97233. They're available 24/7 and can help you create a safety plan and find resources in your area.
And if you're struggling with thoughts of suicide, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 988. That's just 3 numbers, 988. Next week, we'll have more confessions about the choices people make when they're desperate and the prices they pay for those decisions.
We've got some stories that will make you question what you'd do in similar situations.
Until then, remember that everyone you meet is carrying something heavy. Be kind to each other, because you never know what battles people are fighting in private.
This has been Confessions After Dark. I'm Jessica.
And I'm Derek. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Oh, and our lawyers have asked me to remind everyone that according to them, this entire show is completely fabricated fiction created for entertainment purposes only. So officially, none of these confessions are real. All names have been changed to protect the innocent, and everything was AI generated. That's what our legal team requires us to say, so there you have it.